Good afternoon and welcome to A Brief History of Community of Christ with Lachlan Mackay. This is our third of 5 classes. Since we're really pressed for time, I'm going to turn the class over to Lachlan and away we go.
Great. Questions from the last 2 days while I get set up in screen share? All right, we'll launch into Missouri. So we send missionaries, what we called Lamanite missionaries, February of 1831. We touched on this briefly earlier, I think, headed to what is now the US state of Kansas to preach to Native Americans. Oliver Cowdery, Peter Whitmer, Parley P. Pratt, and Ziba Peterson are the 4 missionaries. By the summer of 31, Joseph Smith and others have also arrived in Jackson County, Missouri. I think it's kind of funny that I grew up in Jackson County, and I was shocked to discover that Joseph Smith never lived there. He visited on a few occasions, but never lived in Jackson County, Missouri. But he did designate Independence as the center place. Soon Bishop Edward Partridge is sent to Jackson to implement the law of consecration, this opportunity to share all things common. They quickly ran into trouble. Somebody joined, consecrated their property, left, and wanted their property back and sued us. So they're fairly quickly having some challenges on that concept of all things common. Joseph dedicates a temple site in Jackson County, Missouri on the 3rd of August of 1831. And then he returned in April of 1832 for his second visit to Jackson County, Missouri. By June of 33, he's sending a plan for the city of Zion or for independence. So we talked about 24 temples, the idea. So the light green you see in this image, courtesy of John Hamer, is what we eventually buy from Jones Flournoy, the 63-acre temple lot. The light green is the 63 acres. Initially, the temples are going to run east-west, as you see here. There were going to be farms outside of town, streets 135 feet wide. And if you'll notice the grids in the city blocks, the way they're laid out, you would not be facing your neighbor's front door. So they're staggered, they're alternated. So your home would face the side of somebody else's lot. This is the 63 acres we just talked about, but broken down by who owns what today. The green, about 40 acres, is owned by Community of Christ. The pink is about 20 acres owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the Church of Christ temple lot is the yellow of the 63 acres. When Joseph designated a place for a temple, we didn't own any of this. And what we bought is 63 acres. So that's why I'm using temple lot to refer to the whole 63 acres. This is a modern layout that shows you, again, that light green, the 63 acres, and then who is what where. So our temple today sits on the northeast corner of that 63 acre purchase. Auditorium is there as well. Church of Christ temple lot, part of that as well. And the LDS Visitor Center sits on that also. The stone church is just off of the temple lot, off of that 63 acres. By 20 July of 1833, non-Latter-day Saints in Jackson County, most of whom are from Virginia and Kentucky, meet and decide that the Latter-day Saints must go. Our print shop is destroyed. They actually stick a log through a window and out the door and start prying on the log. And what that did to a brick building is tear the corner out. And if your corner is gone from a brick building, then the building comes down. That's just what happened. Bishop Edward Partridge and Charles Allen are tarred and feathered, which was a not uncommon thing to do to horse thieves or abolitionists or temperance speakers, or in this case, preachers. The violence culminated in November of 33 with our being driven from the county. Why? What were some of the causes? I think the biggest one, it's simply a cultural conflict. We are New Englanders out of the northeast part of the US with a very particular culture. And a lot of those earlier settlers were Southern in their worldview, Southern US. We were, as we've talked repeatedly about, communitarians, this idea that working together is a better system, while most of those folks that had arrived earlier were into this rugged individualist mindset. We liked Native Americans, believed that they were God's chosen people, and our neighbors were scared of the Native people. And there were lots of stories circulating, some of them unfortunately probably promoted by us, that we were going to join with the Native people to take out the earlier settlers. We were generally opposed to slavery, and those earlier settlers generally supported it. We also had published in our church newspaper an article entitled "Free People of Color," which was detailing how formerly enslaved people, now free, could join the church and move to Missouri. But our neighbors read that headline, "Free People of Color," as a call to free people of color, which didn't play very well in that area. And then finally, we had a bad habit of explaining that we were God's chosen people and those other people were not, and that they might own the land at the moment, but God says it's ours, we will have it. So for all of those reasons, and likely more, we end up in this violent conflict and are forcibly expelled from Jackson County, Missouri. Questions? All right, we'll keep going.
Oh, just one quick question about the temple lot. The 63 acres, if we didn't own it, did those other people buy it, the property, or get the rights to part of that 63 acres before we did?
So yes, other people owned the 63 acres. It had already been sold. So as the US was opening up, the federal government would sell off property for the first time. So there were already people there who had purchased it. And so we ended up buying the 63 acres from a man named Jones Flournoy.
Well, the LDS block.
So how do they get it? How do they get it is the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're forced out and are not able to hold on to it. We lose control. And I don't know, I'm guessing it was tax sales. In the US, law doesn't really allow for abandoned property for very long anyway. So if you're not paying taxes, then eventually it is taken and sold. But I don't know the exact mechanism, but we do not hold on to it. And other people make it back, like the Church of Christ Temple lot, the Hedrickites they're sometimes called. They made it back early, maybe 1860s, maybe even a little earlier, and start buying pieces back, as did we eventually. And then the Mormons are probably a little later. And I believe they used a straw party to do that, meaning the people who were selling it didn't know who they were really selling it to. So purchased back.
Okay, but they are, all of those others are part of the original so-called temple lot.
Yeah, so anything in light green here is part of that 63-acre temple lot. Church of Christ Temple lot has the location for the traditional location for the first of the 24 temples to be built. But historically, it's not quite clear. Their claim is based on a stone that was found in the 1930s, I think it was, that says SECT 31, which they interpreted as Southeast Corner Temple 1831. But the people who were there when a stone was placed said that the stone said something else. So what they found does not match what they should have found if those accounts are accurate. So historically, it's not clear, but traditionally that's the spot for the first of the 24 temples, and I think it probably is. And strangely, the first to be built was going to be temple number 5.
Okay.
How long was this violence going on at this period? And both sides were fighting, correct? Was this a violent time?
Was this a violent time? So it became a violent time, and I think it's probably a matter of months that really there's significant violence. Initially, both sides are not fighting. There's a section in the Doctrine and Covenants, and now I'm not going to remember which one it is. I think it's in the 90s. But basically, it says to us, if attacked, you are required to turn the other cheek, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then, if assaulted, you can fight back, but only if the Lord commands it. And if you restrain yourself, you will be blessed. So we did not initially fight back. And the Missourians were greatly surprised when, after they'd attacked us multiple times and we did nothing, suddenly we are fighting back. And there are people hurt on both sides. What we understood, I believe, is that we had fulfilled that commandment. And tragically, we somehow understood that God had said we could fight back. So we were not pacifists in those first few years, but we were not far removed. We really were, I think, on the path to becoming a peace church in 1831 and 32. But we are overwhelmed by that frontier culture of violence, and we soon start fighting back with a vengeance, and it escalates into northern Missouri. So hopefully we'll have time to get to it, but I argue that much of our peace emphasis today has its roots in Joseph Smith III, but that what in some ways he was doing was returning us to that pre-Jackson County expulsion place. So that there were really a significant focus on peace from 1831 and 32 that he is taking us back to through his 54 years of leadership. Okay, so we are pushed north from Jackson County, Missouri into Clay County, Missouri. It's just across the Missouri River, and that is the home of Liberty, Missouri. You see here a photograph of the Liberty, Missouri jail where Joseph Smith was later incarcerated. And initially things are going pretty well for us in Clay County, but after a couple of years, things start to get tense. So by 36, the locals are worried. So what's happening is the Missouri Saints are gathering to Clay County, and soon members from the east are gathering to Clay County as well. Suddenly there's a bunch of us there, and the residents of Clay County realize if we vote, we're going to take over. So they don't turn to violence. What they do is put together a public meeting, and they're peaceful about it, but they say that we are Eastern men and that we must go. Remember that reference to New England, the cultural conflict. They also, though, are annoyed that we are saying that the land is destined by heaven to be ours. They're annoyed that our manners, habits, customs, and even dialect are different than our own. They thought we talked funny, among other things. We were opposed to slavery, and we were communicating with the Native Americans, which made them nervous. So for all of those reasons, they asked us to leave. But they also asked the Missouri State Legislature to help us by creating a county just for the Latter-day Saints. So we move on. We thank the Clay County residents for sheltering us for those years. We try and defend ourselves against the charges, but we welcome their help in finding a new home for us. And then we move north. We start looking in Ray County, which is a little further north from Independence, from Jackson County. And soon Ray County is divided up into new counties for the first time. We began purchasing land, but the state legislature is carving up new areas to settle. By August of 36, we're entering a land claim. So in a new area, there's a slightly different process for acquiring the land. We were the first owners from the US government, and we were acquiring what would become the city of Far West, would become church headquarters by August of 36. Soon, thousands of us are gathering to Far West, Missouri, and it is a city. Now, when you visit that spot today, you can see no evidence of a city, but there were probably 5,000 of us there eventually. Once again, we went about with our community building plans. We laid out a city square, a public square. The temple was going to be on the public square. That's a reoccurring theme. That's also why we end up in conflict with neighbors at times. In the US, the public square is the place for public buildings, not sacred buildings. But we fill our public squares with sacred buildings. So you see where they were going to build the Far West, Missouri Temple. If any of you have visited Far West, Missouri, we have a little congregation there even today, and it sits on the public square, the temple block or public square. It's kind of just below that red circle. And you see their plan for how the city was going to be laid out here. In December of 36, this new county is being formed by the state legislature, and Davies County was also formed for the first time, but it was kind of understood to be for non-Latter-day Saints. So basically they're saying to us, you can have Caldwell County, but don't spread out. What's probably also happening is by giving us this land, they were keeping us away from the really rich, productive farmland in the Missouri River Valley. They were giving us not very good land and preserving the best land for others.
Well, stand by. Locke has just left the meeting. I guess he needs to reconnect. He's probably got some connectivity issues because we know from past experience that Nauvoo does not have the best internet access. So let's just hold on a few minutes and see if he gets back.
Basically, the talk about the land that was sold and bought by the church. Another purchaser of a lot of the land next to the church folks was Lyman Boggs, who became governor of Missouri and issued the extermination order. And Lyman Edwards got that rescinded back in the 70s.
Okay.
There he is.
So my internet, I think, is down. So I'm on my cell phone. This is not going to be optimal, but can you kind of see?
Yes, we can see, and glad to have you back.
We'll give it a go and see what happens. And I'll try and also watch and see if we're going to make it back. So church leaders end up in conflict and disagreements. They were concerned that some had sold land that they thought they shouldn't have sold, probably related to Jackson County, Missouri. And then our bank in Kirtland, as we talked about, is failing. That's causing problems. So our leaders start to squabble. Joseph fled Far West, Missouri after the bank failure. I'm sorry, Kirtland after the bank failure. Lands in 1838 in Far West, Missouri. By 17 June of 1838, Sidney Rigdon, one of the church leaders, develops something called the Salt Sermon. Because dissent had destroyed the church, in effect, in Kirtland, Sidney declared that there was no room for dissent in the church. He said, it's like salt that's lost its savor. We should cast it out and tread on it. Basically, he's warning the dissenters that there's no room for them in the church. This is another of our not very proud moments. And so some of the dissenting members and leaders flee, concerned for their safety. We are laying out a new town. So remember I said that Caldwell County was set up for us. but Davies County, Missouri was supposed to be not for us, but we had filled up Caldwell County, or thought we did. We start spreading out into Davies. We establish a new town called Adam-on-Day-Alman in Davies County. We also had settled in a place called DeWitt in Carroll County, Missouri. The locals invited us in, sold us the land, welcomed us, but the people selling us the land had not checked with their neighbors before doing that. Now, they shouldn't have to, but the neighbors didn't want us there, and that soon became a point of contention. By 4 July of 38, Sidney is delivering a 4th of July sermon. And tragically, he says, if you don't leave us alone, talking to the Missourians, there will be a war of extermination. So Dan was talking about the extermination order. Tragically, we use the language first, and it comes back to haunt us later. By 6 August, the Election Day battle at Gallatin, Missouri. So this is Davies County. What's happening here? See a nice engraving. It's the brand new county and the very first election in this brand new county. And some of the locals.
Well, that didn't last long. It appears we've lost Locke again. He should have left his phone going.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Hello there.
So let me mute here. Okay, try one more time. Well, we'll try more than one more time. We had major storms through Nauvoo a couple of days ago, and some areas have been out for 4 days now. We were lucky, but our luck is apparently not holding. So some of my favorite quotes from all of our history come from this brawl. A big guy by the name of John L. Butler engages. And John said this about this battle. He said, I never struck a man the second time. Any guesses at why he never struck a man the second time?
Killed them.
He didn't kill him, but he didn't have to hit him again. I think he knocked him out tragically. He also said that as I hit them, I knew they would soon accept the gospel. Talk about a true believer. Pretty uncomfortable though.
Well, we seem to have lost Locke again. I'm watching our participants, and Locke is coming in and out, but he's not getting any sort of a connection. He's just logged in again. I don't know if it's phone or computer, but he is not getting a good connection, it looks like. He is on right now.
Oh, there he is.
He's still muted though.
Yeah, the image looks frozen.
It does, because this is off his phone. He's having trouble now with connectivity with both his phone and his computer. It's moving now though.
While
And
you're
gone
working-
again. No, he's back. I just got your message. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Things like this happen. What can you say? Anyways, I will pass things on, and we'll take care of it. Okay, great. Bye-bye. Okay, I just got off the phone with Locke, and I'm afraid that today is kind of a bust. So let's just wrap things up here, and we'll see you all again tomorrow.
We're kicked
All
out
right.
now though too, huh?
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Enjoy the other events.